The Toon Diffuse General Shader can be found under SASSE Library Materials Base, and its settings can be adjusted in the Materials tab right here. The light band threshold will increase or decrease the number of lights, the number of bands in the light, and the sensitivity of the object to light. So increasing it makes it more sensitive, and taking it all the way up to 10 will give you a really highly banded, almost aliased look. I've never found roughness to do a whole lot in a diffuse material, but it's here if you need it. Rim light strength you can increase to make it emissive. Bring down to nothing if you don't want a rim light. 1 is your standard value, and then the rim light mask will determine whether it shows up on the entire object or just where the light hits. Ambient occlusion can be turned up or down. It has to be enabled on the scene level. And the depth can also be, so the darkness, how dark the dark areas are, can be turned up or down. Shadow depth, 0.5 is the default setting, 1 is fully black shadows, and 0 is very light shadows. Shader strength can be adjusted, turned up or down, and that will maintain the shadows and the rim lights because this emissive effect happens after all the rest of those are calculated. Surface input, amount, light band input, and amount, rim light input, and amount can all be best shown through the shader editor. So we'll click over to the shader editor. So one thing that I didn't mention is you can adjust the color here. So just choose any arbitrary color, or you can supply a texture of your own that's mapped to the object. Obviously this one is not, but you can see that we still have the rim light hitting, we still have the shadow, we still have all of these effects available to us, whether we choose to use a color or a texture as the input. Okay, so for these surface inputs, we'll first use a procedural texture, this noise texture here. Plugging that into the surface input, we can turn up the surface amount, and I'll turn up the scale of the noise too, so it's a little easier to see. So we can see this is actually kind of warping the surface of the mesh. It's determining how the actual surface of the mesh appears. So this is being fed into a bump node, and the surface amount is the strength of the bump. So perhaps you want that to give this aged look. Maybe you have something like a tree bark material that you're trying to create where you want to have the appearance of bumps in the surface. That is how you get that. So we'll turn that down. And now we'll plug this next into the light band input. So the light band input will do a similar thing, but instead of affecting the surface of the mesh, it will only affect where the light bands appear. And we might need a higher scale noise again. So I'll turn this up, and a little bit can do a lot. And you can, if you find that you're shading out your object, you can turn up the light bands to balance that. But this will let you have a little breakup in the lining of the lights. So we can see there's a smooth line between light and shadow, and then as we increase that, we get a breakup. And we can use that noise texture, or we can use one of the supplied art textures. So I'll plug this in here. We may need to scale it up a bit because that's a bit probably too large. So make this a smaller effect, and now we can see these individual brush strokes appearing. We can also plug that same texture into the rim light input. So you can see the rim light there is like nice and smooth, perfectly even across the whole band. And as we turn this up, we'll see that same breakup appear on the rim light as well. So now we've got a brushed rim and a brushed main light, or a split between shadow and light. And the whole shader is also sensitive to colored light. So we can turn this on. We've got green light over here, a blue light out front, and a red light off to the side. And that is the Toon Diffuse General Shader.